I never imagined my double life would come to this. For years, I'd played the role of the dutiful employee, climbing the corporate ladder at Environex, one of the world's largest biotech firms. My badge gave me access to billions in intellectual property, trade secrets that could ruin careers, destroy alliances, and topple economies. But I didn't do this for the thrill or the money. I did it because someone had to expose the truth. Or at least that's what I told myself. When I first contacted Isabel Trent, she was the epitome of everything I believed in, a fearless investigative journalist known for taking down corrupt CEOs and exposing government cover-ups. Her award-winning exposés had taken her from global summits to war zones, and her byline carried the weight of authority. If anyone could take down Environex, it was her. The documents I had weren't just damning, they were a smoking gun. Internal memos detailing experiments they had no business conducting. Unregulated drug trials in third world countries, falsified FDA approvals, and a cozy relationship with a shadowy foreign investor who seemed to be pulling strings from the background. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Environex was untouchable, protected by politicians and corporate lawyers with unlimited resources. But Isabel, she was different, or so I thought. The first meeting was arranged in a bustling cafe on the edge of downtown. Neutral territory. She arrived 5 minutes early, her sharp eyes scanning the room before settling on me. Isabel was exactly as I'd imagined, confident, direct, and impossible to read. She slid into the booth across from me without a word, set her recorder on the table, and gestured for me to start. I have everything, I began, sliding a USB drive across the table. My palms were damp, and my voice trembled more than I'd like to admit. Proof of illegal experiments, falsified data, offshore accounts, enough to blow Environex apart. She picked up the drive, turning it between her fingers like it was a puzzle she had to solve. Why now? You've been working there for years. Why risk everything? I hesitated. How could I explain that the lies had become unbearable? That I couldn't keep looking the other way as people died because of the company's greed? But instead of spilling my soul, I stuck to the story I'd rehearsed. Because someone has to, and because they can't keep getting away with this. Her lips twitched into a faint smile, but there was no warmth behind it. Fair enough, but you realize what you're doing, right? Once this goes public, you're done. You'll be hunted by their lawyers, and your career will be over. You need to be ready for that. I nodded, trying to appear more confident than I felt. I've accepted the risks. Just make sure the truth gets out. She stood, pocketing the drive. I'll be in touch. Don't contact me unless it's urgent. As I watched her leave, I felt a strange mix of relief and unease. I'd taken the first step toward exposing Environex, but something about Isabel's demeanor didn't sit right with me. She was too calm, too controlled, like she already knew how this story would play out. Back at my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just set something into motion that I couldn't stop. My phone buzzed and a message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. Don't trust her. My stomach dropped. Was someone watching me? Or worse, was Isabel already playing her own game? The message rattled me more than I cared to admit. Don't trust her. It lingered in my mind, a warning I couldn't ignore. I stared at the phone, trying to make sense of it. The number was untraceable, an anonymous burner. My first instinct was paranoia. Was Environex onto me already? Or had someone else been tracking my moves? I forced myself to focus, locking my phone away in the drawer where I kept my stash of burner SIMs, a precaution I had adopted the moment I began collecting documents on Environex. Isabel hadn't given me a timeline, but I knew how these things worked. She'd verify the information, cross-check sources, and craft the perfect story to take Environex down. All I had to do was wait. But waiting was harder than I thought. A week passed, then another. Isabel hadn't reached out, and I had no idea what was happening with the files. My anxiety climbed higher with every day of silence. I spent sleepless nights refreshing news feeds, scanning for any hint of a breaking story. Nothing. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I sent her an encrypted message using the contact method she'd given me. It was simple, direct. Any updates? Hours passed. No response. It was late that night when I finally heard from her, not by message but on the news. Isabel Trent was front and center on a breaking report, her face lit by the glow of cameras. But instead of exposing Environex, she was standing outside a government building, holding what she claimed to be evidence of a different corruption scandal. I froze, watching in disbelief as she spoke about an unrelated investigation into defense contractors and political kickbacks. What was she doing? The USB drive, the evidence that could destroy Environex, was nowhere in her statements. I grabbed my phone and sent another message, this time more direct. What the hell is going on? Where's the story on Environex? This time she replied within minutes. Patience. These things take time. But her words rang hollow. Something was wrong. I'd handed her everything, proof that could shake the foundation of a global corporation, and she was sitting on it. Why? I decided I couldn't wait any longer. The next morning I called in sick to work and drove to Isabel's office. Her assistant barely glanced at me as I pushed past her desk. Isabel was seated behind her glass-topped desk, calm and composed, as though she'd been expecting me. Ryan, she said, leaning back in her chair, this isn't how we do things. Cut the crap, I snapped. You've had the files for weeks. What's the holdup? Her expression didn't change. Do you know how many times whistleblowers like you have come to me, thinking they've got the story of the century? You need to understand that journalism isn't just about publishing the truth. It's about timing. Timing, my voice rose. People are dying because of what Environex is doing. You have everything you need to expose them. She sighed, standing and walking to the window. You're naive if you think this is that simple. You're not just going after Environex. You're going after an entire system that protects them. If we're going to take them down, we need more than what you gave me. Her words didn't sit right. There was a layer of something beneath them, something she wasn't telling me. You're stalling, I said, my voice low. Why? She turned to face me, her gaze sharp. Do you trust me, Ryan? The question caught me off guard. I thought I did, I admitted. Then let me do my job, she said firmly, and stay out of my way. As I left her office, my gut screamed at me that I was missing something. Isabel was hiding something, and I wasn't sure I'd like what I found when I uncovered it. Back in my car, I checked my phone. Another anonymous message had come through. The words chillingly simple. She's not who you think she is. The message gnawed at me all the way home. She's not who you think she is. I kept replaying the conversation with Isabel in my head, dissecting every word, every pause, every glance. Something about her calm demeanor felt too polished, too rehearsed. I needed answers, and I knew I wouldn't find them sitting alone in my apartment. The first thing I did was reach out to an old contact, Charlie, a former hacker turned digital investigator. Charlie wasn't exactly someone you'd introduce to your parents, but he was the best at uncovering the secrets people didn't want found. Ryan, Charlie said, his voice crackling through the encrypted call, haven't heard from you in a while. What's the trouble? I need a background check on someone, I said, keeping my voice steady. Isabel Trent, investigative journalist. Charlie let out a low whistle. Trent? She's big time. You sure you want to dig into her? Could get messy. I'm not sure I have a choice, I replied. Fair enough. Send me what you've got on her. I'll see what I can dig up. I sent him the details and tried to go about my day, but the waiting was unbearable. Every buzz of my phone made my pulse spike. I felt like a hunted animal, caught in some invisible web of deceit. Finally, late that evening, Charlie called back. You sitting down? He asked. Just tell me what you found, I said. Trent's got skeletons, all right, he said. She's been on the radar of a few powerful people. Big corporations, political players. But here's the kicker. She's got ties to a PR firm that specializes in damage control for companies like Environex. I felt the air leave my lungs. What kind of ties? Payments, Charlie said. Significant ones. Routed through a shell company, but the trail's there if you know where to look. Looks like she's done consulting work for them in the past. Doesn't exactly scream impartial journalism, does it? I gripped the edge of the table, my mind racing. Isabel had played me. She hadn't taken the story to expose Environex. She'd taken it to bury it. Anything else? I asked, my voice tight. One more thing, Charlie said. You're not the only one keeping tabs on her. Someone's been monitoring her communications. Could be law enforcement, could be something else. Whoever it is, they're good. A cold chill ran down my spine. The anonymous messages, the warnings, they hadn't been coming from Isabel. Someone else was watching, and they wanted me to know. Thanks, Charlie, I said, hanging up. I sat in the dark for hours trying to figure out my next move. Isabel was clearly compromised, but confronting her again wouldn't get me anywhere. If I wanted to expose Environex, I'd have to do it myself. The problem was, I didn't know who to trust. The next day, I went back to the office and acted like everything was normal. My coworkers barely noticed me as I slipped into my cubicle and logged into the company network. I had spent months gathering data on Environex, but I realized now that I'd only scratched the surface. If I wanted to take them down, I'd need more than incriminating documents. I'd need evidence so damning, so undeniable, that even their army of lawyers couldn't spin it. I started pulling files, working late into the night to cover my tracks. Every keystroke felt like a risk, every glance over my shoulder a reminder of how much was at stake. It was past midnight when I found it, a confidential memo buried deep in the company's internal database. It outlined a contingency plan for dealing with whistleblowers, complete with surveillance tactics, smear campaigns, and, chillingly, neutralization strategies. My blood ran cold. Before I could save the file, my screen froze. A red banner flashed across the monitor. Unauthorized access detected. Panic set in as I yanked the USB drive from the port and shut the laptop. My phone buzzed almost immediately. It was another message from the anonymous sender. They know. Get out. I didn't wait to find out who they were. Grabbing my things, I bolted from the office, my heart pounding in my chest. As I stepped into the parking lot, I felt a presence behind me. Turning quickly, I saw a shadowy figure leaning against a car. Ryan, the figure said, stepping into the dim light. It was a woman, her face partially obscured by a scarf. We need to talk. Now. Who are you? I demanded, keeping my distance. Someone who wants to see Environex fall, she said. But you're running out of time. The woman's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with my frazzled state. She stepped closer, lowering her scarf to reveal sharp features and piercing eyes. There was something unsettlingly familiar about her, but I couldn't place it. Ryan, she said, her voice steady, if you don't listen to me, you'll be dead by sunrise. Who the hell are you? I snapped, my instincts screaming at me to run. Call me Zara, she said. I'm a friend, and right now I'm your only chance at staying alive. Why should I trust you? I demanded, backing up slightly. Because I've been keeping you alive this long, she said coolly. The messages, the warnings, that was me. Her words sent a jolt through me. You've been watching me? Why? Because you're the one person who can finish what I started, she said. But you're making mistakes, drawing too much attention. Environex knows you've been digging. They're already mobilizing. How do you know all this? I asked, suspicion lacing my tone. Because I was one of them, Zara said, until I wasn't. The weight of her words hung in the air. Was she a defector? A double agent? I didn't know what to believe, but there was no time to dwell on it. You've got about 20 minutes before security pulls the logs from your terminal and figures out exactly what you accessed, Zara continued. When that happens, they'll send a team after you. And trust me, you don't want them to catch you. I have everything I need, I said, holding up the USB drive. Zara gave a bitter laugh. You think that's enough? You've got pieces of the puzzle, Ryan. But if you want to expose Environex, you need the whole picture. I can help you get it. How? I asked, my skepticism fading into desperation. There's a facility, Zara said, off the books, hidden in plain sight. It's where they keep the real secrets, the ones they can't afford to lose. I stared at her, torn between disbelief and the nagging sense that she was telling the truth. And you expect me to just walk in there? Not alone, Zara said. I'll guide you, but we have to move, now. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Zara led me to an unmarked car parked nearby. As we drove through the empty streets, she filled me in on the facility. It's disguised as a research lab, she explained. Officially, it's where they test new environmental technologies. Unofficially, it's where they keep the dirt on everyone they've ever blackmailed or bribed. Politicians, CEOs, journalists, you name it. The pieces started to fall into place. If I could get into that facility and retrieve the evidence, I'd have the leverage I needed to take Environex down. What about Isabel? I asked. Zara's expression darkened. She's a liability. Whatever you do, don't contact her again. She's not working for you. She's working for them. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd trusted Isabel, confided in her, and she'd betrayed me. But I couldn't dwell on it now. We pulled up to a nondescript building on the outskirts of town. It looked ordinary enough, but the high fences and security cameras told a different story. This is it, Zara said. You'll need to follow my lead. One wrong move, and we're both dead. She handed me a small earpiece. I'll guide you from the car. You'll have to go in alone. What about you? I asked. I've already burned my cover, Zara said. If they see me, it's over. But don't worry, I'll be watching. Reluctantly, I took the earpiece and slipped it in. Zara handed me a badge that looked like an employee ID. It's cloned from someone on the inside, she said. It'll get you past the first checkpoint. After that, you're on your own. I stepped out of the car, my heart hammering in my chest. The building loomed ahead, its sterile facade hiding the secrets within. Stay calm, Zara's voice crackled in my ear. Act like you belong. I swiped the badge at the entrance, and the door clicked open. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, the hum of machinery filling the silence. Head to the elevator, Zara instructed. Second floor, east wing. That's where the main server room is. I followed her directions, my senses on high alert. Every passing employee felt like a potential threat, every security camera a silent witness. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out into a dimly lit corridor. Keep going, Zara said. The server room is at the end of the hall. I reached the door and swiped the badge again. The lock clicked open, and I slipped inside. Rows of servers lined the room, their blinking lights casting eerie shadows. I plugged in the USB drive and started the download, my fingers trembling as I worked. Hurry, Zara urged. You've got 2 minutes before the system flags the breach. The progress bar inched forward agonizingly slowly. My pulse raced as I glanced around, half expecting someone to burst in at any moment. Finally, the download completed. I yanked the drive out and slipped it into my pocket. Get out of there, Zara said urgently. I turned to leave, but the door opened before I could reach it. A guard stood there, his eyes narrowing as he spotted me. Hey, he shouted, reaching for his radio. Adrenaline took over. I shoved past him and bolted down the hall, Zara's voice in my ear urging me to run. My legs moved faster than my thoughts. The guard's shouts echoed down the hallway as I sprinted for the elevator. Zara's voice crackled in my ear, calm but urgent. Don't take the elevator. They'll lock it down. Head for the stairwell to your left. I veered toward the unmarked door she mentioned, slamming it open and bounding down the stairs 2 steps at a time. The faint sound of boots clattering above told me reinforcements were already in pursuit. Exit at the ground floor, Zara instructed. There's a service door at the end of the corridor. It leads to the loading dock. Go! I pushed through the stairwell door into a sterile hallway, identical to the one upstairs. My chest burned from exertion, and the pounding of my heartbeat drowned out everything else. Every corner felt like a potential ambush, every shadow a trap waiting to spring. As I neared the service door, the distant sound of voices grew louder. They were coordinating, closing in. They're triangulating your position, Zara warned. Move faster. I reached the door and shoved it open, emerging into the dimly lit loading dock. Stacks of crates and industrial equipment provided cover, but I could hear footsteps closing in from the other side of the room. There's a delivery truck parked at the far end, Zara said. Get inside and stay low. I'll guide you from there. I spotted the truck, its rear door slightly ajar. Keeping low, I darted between crates, staying out of sight. Just as I reached the truck, a flashlight beam swept past, missing me by inches. Did you hear that? A guard's voice called out. I climbed into the truck and closed the door as quietly as I could, my breath ragged. The space smelled of oil and stale air, the darkness inside suffocating. Good, Zara said. Now stay put. They'll sweep the area, but they won't check the truck if you're quiet. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear the guard's movements outside. The flashlight beams danced across the loading dock, illuminating every nook and cranny. "Nothing here," one of them muttered. "Keep looking," another replied. "He couldn't have gone far." The truck jolted suddenly and I nearly lost my balance. The engine roared to life and the vehicle began to move. "Perfect timing," Zara said. "That truck's scheduled for a delivery. It'll take you out of the compound." "What happens when they unload it?" I whispered. "They won't," Zara said. "The driver's part of our network. He'll drop you at a safe location." Her words brought some relief, but my mind was still racing. The USB drive in my pocket felt like a lead weight. I had the data, but what now? Environex wouldn't stop hunting me. They'd already proven that. The truck rumbled on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, it came to a halt, and the back door creaked open. "Get out," Zara said. "You're safe, for now." I jumped down, landing in a deserted parking lot on the outskirts of the city. A black sedan idled nearby, its headlights off. Zara stepped out, her figure illuminated by the faint glow of the truck's taillights. "You did well," she said, her tone almost approving. "Now what?" I asked, my voice tinged with exhaustion. "Now we figure out how to use what you've got," Zara said. She held out her hand, and I hesitated before handing over the USB drive. She plugged it into a laptop and began typing furiously, the glow of the screen casting eerie shadows on her face. "Is this everything?" she asked, her eyes scanning the data. "It's what I could get," I said defensively. "It's enough," Zara said, a smile playing on her lips. "This is more than just leverage, Ryan. This is a weapon." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I had envisioned exposing Environex, but Zara's tone suggested something more drastic. "What do you mean?" I asked. "This data doesn't just implicate Environex," Zara said. "It ties them to international arms deals, political corruption, even human trafficking. If we release this, it'll do more than take down the company. It'll destabilize entire governments." "That's not what I signed up for," I said, stepping back. "You signed up to make a difference," Zara said, her voice hardening. "This is your chance." I felt like a pawn in a game I barely understood. Zara's motivations were murky, her true agenda hidden behind layers of calculated charm. "What's your endgame?" I asked, my distrust bubbling to the surface. "My endgame," Zara repeated, closing the laptop. "Justice, the kind the system will never deliver." Before I could respond, headlights appeared in the distance. Zara's expression darkened. "They found us," she said, her calm demeanor giving way to urgency. "What do we do?" I asked. "We run," Zara said, grabbing the laptop, "and we don't stop until this is over." We climbed into the sedan, and Zara floored the accelerator. The car shot forward, the headlights behind us growing larger. "Hold on," Zara said, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. The chase was on, and I had no idea where it would lead, or if I'd survive it. The sedan roared through the empty streets, headlights slicing through the thick night. Zara gripped the steering wheel with one hand, her other holding the laptop steady on her lap, as she barked commands to the unseen network on her earpiece. "Diversion team, I need interference at exit 32. We've got a tail, possibly two. Activate disruption protocols, now." Her voice was commanding, almost military. I had no idea what disruption protocols meant, but I prayed they worked. I turned in my seat, catching a glimpse of two black SUVs barreling toward us, their beams bouncing wildly over the uneven asphalt. "They're gaining," I said, the edge of panic in my voice. "Not for long," Zara replied, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "Keep your head down." She yanked the wheel hard to the left, sending the car skidding into an industrial district. Warehouses loomed like sleeping giants, their dark silhouettes broken only by sporadic security lights. Zara swerved through narrow alleys, the tires screeching against the pavement. The SUVs followed relentlessly, their engines snarling like predators. I clutched the door handle, my heart hammering in my chest. "Disruption protocols engaged," a cool voice crackled through Zara's earpiece. Ahead, a utility truck rolled into the intersection, blocking the road entirely. Zara accelerated toward it, veering off at the last second to slip into an unmarked side street. The SUVs weren't so lucky. The first slammed on its brakes, skidding into the truck with a bone-jarring crash. The second narrowly avoided the collision, but its momentum forced it into a lamppost, shattering the light in an explosion of sparks. Zara didn't slow down. She navigated the maze of streets with precision, finally easing up only when we were miles away, and the pursuing headlights had disappeared. "That should buy us time," she said, her voice steady. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. "Who were they?" I asked. "Environex's private security. Mercenaries, basically," Zara said. "They won't stop until they retrieve that data, or eliminate us." Her casual mention of elimination sent a shiver down my spine. I hadn't signed up for this level of danger. "We need to lie low," I said. "Get somewhere safe and regroup." Zara shook her head. "There's no safe haven, Ryan. They'll find us wherever we go. The only way to survive this is to stay ahead." I didn't like her answer, but I didn't have a better one. Zara pulled into the parking lot of a rundown motel, its flickering neon sign announcing vacancy in a sickly orange glow. "Stay here," she said, cutting the engine. "I'll handle check-in." She disappeared into the office, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I stared at the laptop she'd left on the dashboard, the weight of its contents pressing down on me. This wasn't just corporate espionage. It was a Pandora's box of secrets that could reshape entire power structures. Zara returned a few minutes later with a key. "Room 12, let's move." The room was as dingy as I expected. Peeling wallpaper, a stained carpet, and a flickering television bolted to the wall. Zara set the laptop on the small desk and began typing furiously. "What are you doing?" I asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Uploading a backup of the data to a secure server," she said. "If anything happens to us, the truth still gets out." The gravity of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized then that Zara wasn't just trying to expose Environex. She was willing to die for it. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "What's your stake in all this?" Zara paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a moment, her hard exterior softened. "Because they took everything from me," she said quietly. "My family, my career, my future. All gone because of their greed. This isn't just about justice. It's personal." Her confession added a new layer to the puzzle that was Zara. I couldn't tell if her motivations made her noble or dangerous, or both. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and cursed under her breath. "They've traced us," she said, snapping the laptop shut. "We need to leave, now." My stomach dropped. "How? We just lost them." "They're using cell towers and surveillance systems," Zara said, already packing up. "They'll keep finding us until we make our move." "What move?" I asked, scrambling to my feet. "We take the fight to them," Zara said, her eyes blazing with determination. "It's the only way to end this." Her plan sounded insane, but I knew she was right. Running wasn't an option anymore. It was time to face Environex head-on, whatever the cost. As we slipped out of the motel and back into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. But there was no turning back now. The only way out was through. We drove in silence, the weight of the night pressing down on us like a thick fog. Zara's hands gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity, her eyes scanning the road for any sign of pursuit. The city lights faded behind us as we moved toward a part of town I didn't recognize. Industrial, desolate, and eerily quiet. "This is it," Zara said, breaking the silence. "The server farm where Environex keeps its real secrets?" I stared at the sprawling compound coming into view. It was surrounded by high fences topped with razor wire, cameras swiveling in every direction, and a security checkpoint that looked more like a military outpost. "How do we even get in there?" I asked, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Zara smirked, pulling a duffel bag from the back seat. "We don't walk through the front door, that's for sure." She handed me a small device, about the size of a deck of cards, with a single blinking light. "What's this?" "A signal jammer," she explained. "It'll disrupt their cameras for 2 minutes, just long enough to get us through the perimeter." I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly as I clutched the device. Zara didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't comment. We parked a block away and approached the fence on foot. Zara moved with the precision of someone who had done this before, her movements fluid and deliberate. I followed her lead, every step feeling heavier than the last. When we reached the fence, Zara pulled out a set of wire cutters and worked quickly to create an opening. She gestured for me to go first, and I hesitated, staring into the shadowy expanse beyond. "Ryan," she said, her voice low but firm. We've come too far to back out now. Taking a deep breath, I slipped through the gap, my heart pounding in my ears. Zara followed, her movements as quiet as a whisper. The jammer beeped in my hand, signaling it was active. Zara nodded, and we sprinted toward the building, keeping low to avoid the cameras. My lungs burned by the time we reached the side entrance, but Zara didn't give me a moment to rest. She pulled out a small device and attached it to the keypad by the door. "Give me 30 seconds," she whispered, her fingers flying over the device. The seconds felt like hours as I kept watch, every shadow and distant sound setting my nerves on edge. Finally, the lock clicked, and Zara pushed the door open. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, the hum of servers filling the space. Rows upon rows of machines stretched out before us, their blinking lights casting eerie reflections on the polished floor. Zara moved with purpose, leading me to a terminal near the back of the room. She plugged in a flash drive and began typing furiously. "This is where it all comes crashing down," she said, her voice laced with satisfaction. "Every dirty deal, every illegal experiment, every bribe, it's all stored here." As she worked, I kept glancing toward the entrance, half expecting armed guards to burst in at any moment. "How long will this take?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 5 minutes, she replied. "Maybe less if you stop distracting me." I bit my lip, resisting the urge to ask more questions. The tension was suffocating, and I felt like every second was dragging us closer to disaster. Suddenly an alarm blared, the sound piercing and relentless. Zara cursed under her breath, her fingers flying even faster across the keyboard. "They've found us," she said. "I need another minute." "We don't have a minute," I shouted, my panic overtaking me. "Ryan, listen to me," Zara said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You need to trust me. Just hold them off." I didn't know how I was supposed to hold off anything, but I nodded and moved toward the door, my heart racing. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. 3 guards appeared, their weapons drawn. "Stop right there," one of them shouted. "Don't move," another barked. I raised my hands, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. "Hey, let's all just calm down," I said, my voice shaking. Behind me, I heard the whir of the flash drive ejecting. Zara grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward the servers. "Run!" she shouted. We sprinted through the maze of machines, the guards' shouts and footsteps growing louder behind us. Zara led me to a maintenance hatch near the back of the room and yanked it open. "Go!" she said, shoving me inside. The hatch led to a narrow tunnel that smelled of damp metal and oil. We crawled through as fast as we could, the sound of pursuit growing fainter with each passing second. Finally, we emerged into the night, gasping for air. Zara held up the flash drive, a triumphant grin on her face. "We did it," she said. For a moment, I felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. In the distance, I heard the rumble of approaching engines. "They're not done with us yet," I said. Zara's smile faded. "Then we keep moving." As we disappeared into the night, I realized this wasn't the end of our journey. It was just the beginning of a new fight.